Hello, SteadyOn here, and today's video is going to be on server and client model, or as you may have heard it, local side and server side. This is going to be in Roblox, so if you've come to this video for something not at all related to Roblox, as the client and server model does apply to basically everything on the internet, then you're not probably, it's very unlikely you're going to learn anything from this video, so I would recommend you just don't watch it and you find some better video on YouTube, because there are going to be loads of them out there. Okay, so firstly, I'm going to tell you how to find things that are server-sided. So server-sided is the equivalent of, well, actually, in both the local and the client and server model and the local and server-side thing, server is the same thing. So server is anything that has server written in front of it. That's the main rule you can use to find stuff that's server-sided. It's kind of self-explanatory. Things with server at the beginning are server-sided. If you didn't realise that, I'm not really sure what to do. There's also things like replicated storage is a sort of communication place between the server and the local side. And if you don't understand what that means, very likely you will in a second once I've explained in more depth. So there are actually areas of this that are local and server-sided depending on whether you have filtering enabled on. So the workspace is actually both server and local-sided when you don't have filtering enabled on. But if you have filtering enabled on, i.e. this box, you take this box here, where is it, sorry, there, you take this box here, then the workspace is sort of local and server-sided, apart from what actually happens is the server makes the workspace and then it sends it to all the local side and the client side, and then the local and client side take what the server's given it and then show it on your computer. But if you actually delete something on that thing, if you delete something in the workspace on your computer, it won't be deleted on everyone else's screen, it won't be deleted on the server, it's just completely local to you, and that's what local means. It means that it's local to your computer, so your computer is actually the local side, or the client side, and then Roblox's servers are the server side. And the server, although you might think it's in the clouds or something, the server is actually somewhere in a big data center or something similar to that, and that's what's processing all of the entire server side of the game. So what's the difference between server and local side, right? And this isn't going to be the actual explanation of what the difference is in general. It's going to be the difference it's going to be the differences that affect you as a developer. So the main things are that things in starter GUI will replicate to the player GUI. And just to show you what the player GUI is, if I test the game and I go to players, my player, and in here is something called player GUI, and that contains all of those GUIs that you've put in starter GUI earlier on, right? Now all of these, there's only two in here right now, but these are both local. Well, actually, they're only local if you have filtering enabled on. But as filtering enabled is becoming more and more the normal thing to do on Roblox, really this is just local. So you can't actually take a server script, for example, in server script service, and you can't edit something in the player GUI from here, right? Because this is local and this is server. And the same thing applies for local scripts. So if I have a GUI in here, say a button that I want to use to, let's see, hold on. So I'll call this button. And in here I'll just put a text button. And in the text button I'll put a local script as well. Where is it? There we go. And then I say I want to save something. Say I want to put a part in server storage. So where's part? Part, right? So I have a part in server storage called, I don't know, super part, right? And I want every single time someone clicks this button here, that part to spawn into the workspace and show it to the player, right? Now, there's a lot of, I mean, it's not a lot of problems, but you can probably tell what the problem is already, because if I say local part equals game server storage part, oops, part, super part it was actually, sorry, and then I say part parent equals game workspace, right? what I've actually just done is I've tried to access the server storage from a local script. So if I try and actually do this in game, I haven't actually done this when it's clicked, I've just done it in general. Sorry, actually, the reason that worked is because Studio is actually local. And what that means is that anything you try and use in Studio, so if this script will actually work in Studio, because Studio is actually run off your computer. It's not like a real Roblox game. If you want to test your game like a real Roblox game is tested, then you just go to Test, and this thing here, Clients and Servers, and you can change it to as many players as you want. Just for the sake of this, I'll change it to 1 player. And what this will actually do is simulate a server and a client on your computer itself. So what it's actually doing is pretending that your computer is both a server and a client separately, and it will give you windows for each one. So when this is loaded, whether it'll actually load or not, I'm not sure. Okay, well, it doesn't seem to be wanting to load. But when this loads, you have one window with the player on and one window with the server. And what will actually happen is that part won't be put into the game because it's in the server storage, and that's a server-sided thing. Now, if you wanted to take the part from the server storage and put it in the workspace, however, that's a different story. From the server, I mean, right? So if you have a script in the server script server, sorry, and I make the same thing again, local superpart equals script, game server storage superpart, right? And then I say superpart parent equals game workspace. So what I've actually done there is just move the part to the workspace. Now what will actually happen here is, I know it did work before, but that's just because Studio does that. It will put it into the workspace, right? Because they're both server-sided. The server script service and server storage are both server-sided, so they can communicate fine. You can access the server storage from a server script as long as it's within a server-sided thing. Now the workspace, as I was talking about earlier, is actually sort of in between, because you can put server-sided scripts in the workspace, but if it's within a camera, then you can put local stuff in it. So that's not important. That's actually local parts, which is quite confusing. But yeah, in FilteringEnabled, the workspace is replicated, which means it's sent to basically all of the other clients, all of the other computers in the game, and then the server. So anything in anything here, this can access the workspace. But when the local side, so i.e. this GUI here, tries to access the workspace, what will actually happen is it will change on the player's computer. So the local script is actually replicated to every single player. So on every single player's computer, there is a script like this. That's what local scripts do. Well, it depends actually if you put it in the player, but this script is only on the players you want that script to be on. It's not on the server, which basically means it's on every person in the game. So if this script tries to change something in the workspace, what will actually happen is it will change it on the person's computer that this script is running on. So it won't actually change on anyone else's computer. So just quickly, we'll go through what is server-sided and what is local-sided, and in what situations each is what, right? And also some uses for them when you have filtering enabled on and when you don't have filtering enabled on. So the workspace, as I've already gone over, is sort of both server-sided and local-sided. But if you edit the workspace from the local side, it will only edit on the local side, and that's with filtering enabled on. If you edit it with filtering enabled off, it will edit the workspace, because the workspace is a sort of communal area between the server and the client when filtering enabled is off. But it seems more and more likely that filtering enabled will be sort of mandatory very soon, so you should make your games with filtering enabled anyway. Now players is also very confusing, because the actual player objects are server-sided. So everything in this folder here with the service is actually server-sided, and all the players that are inside this folder, this service, sorry, and I'll show you what I mean. So when the players in the game in this service is player 1, right? That's also server-sided, but the contents of that player are actually local-sided. So what I mean is backpack, starter gear, player GUI and player scripts are actually, they're both local side and server side, but the contents of all of these, the contents of every one of these is local sided. So the server scripts can't access anything inside of these. They can access them themselves, like they can put stuff inside them, but they can't access stuff inside these. So they can actually put the stuff in there, but they can't edit it after they put it in there. Unless you do some things which I'm not going to go over right now, because it's just going to confuse things. Lighting is both local and server-sided if filter enabled is off. If filter enabled is on, then it's local to every player. It's very similar to workspace, but what it means is that if you're used to using, if you want to use server storage as a sort of communal storage area, then you can put it in lighting, and then instead of saying what we did earlier here with the getting the superpart from server storage, if I put this superpart in lighting and I do the same thing and I say game lighting superpart, right, then that will work fine from the local side as well. What else have we got here? So lighting, lighting is obviously where all the lighting is stored, but you can also store stuff inside it, which you can access from the client. Now, replicated first is all the things that happen at the very beginning of the game. So basically this is used for stuff like loading screens, etc. It can be very good for that sort of thing. Replicated storage plays a very similar role to lighting. So if you want to actually, as I was saying earlier, if you want to use that superpart, you can put it in replicated storage instead of server storage, and what that will mean is both the server scripts, so server scripts in here, and server scripts in the workspace, can access replicated storage, but this script in the local side can also access replicated storage because it's replicated to every single client. Replicated is it sort of sent to every single client. Everything in that folder is sent to all the clients. So all the clients, the local side, can access everything in this, and so can the server, the thing that's running the entire game. Then you've got server script service. So server script service will only run on the server. It can't access local sided things. So for example, the things inside the player, and there are some other things as well. The parts of the chat are local as well. And so this can access the workspace, server storage, I think starter GUI, and some other things as well. It's really case sensitive, so you'll have to test it yourself, because a lot of things filter enabled might surprise you whether or not they work or not. Then server storage is a server-sided storage, so this can only be accessed through scripts in server script service or in the workspace, which they have to be normal scripts, not local scripts. Then starter GUI, I think, is server-sided. And then starter pack is also server-sided. Starter player is server-sided as well. And this stuff is just completely irrelevant, really. Parts of chat are local-sided, but if you're advanced enough to be able to do things with chat, then you should be advanced enough to understand this anyway, so I won't go over that. So that really is all there is to talk about the client and server model in Roblox. If you have any questions about this, put it in the comments. Otherwise, you can ask on the scripting forum on Roblox. They're usually very helpful with stuff like this. I used to basically ask everything on there whenever I needed help with anything. So yeah, that's it. I'll just do a very quick representation of what I mean by the client and server model by building a client and server. So if I get a block here, and this represents the server, very quickly. So this is the server here, and then these things here, these little black things I'm going to make, hold on. So these little black things here represent the clients, right? And this thing here represents your computer, yeah? So what will actually happen is, when you send something, say you edited something in the workspace, or you do something in this local script here, what it will do is it will send it along this line to the server, and the server will go, are they allowed to do that, right? And if they're allowed to do that, it will then send this signal, it will then send what you've done to the other clients as well, right? So it's actually very simple, really. That's the client-server model at its basics. Just very quickly. So it goes, basically, That's what replication is. So at the beginning of the game, all the stuff in the game is stored in this server, the green server thing here, and then it sends it out to all the other computers in the game. And then if you want to edit something in this script here, it will send that command to the server, and the server will say, are they allowed to do that? If they're allowed to do that, they send it to all the other people in the server as well. If it's replicated, if it's filter enabled, then it will basically block anything from this client going to these, essentially, unless it goes through replicated storage. And that would have to be remote events and remote functions. You can watch my tutorial on that as well. I'll put that at the end of the video. So thanks for watching, and if you need help, as I said, comments or scripting forums on Roblox.